The good news was delivered in song this morning. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Next week, the starting gun for the New York City Marathon will fire off. And runners from around the world will begin the 26.3-mile race through the street. Some of the runners who come from every nation will race for the prize, while others will consider a finish to be the victory. But while running a marathon is still a popular bucket list item for many people, other runners who are regular believe that running such a long horizontal distance again and again over time can really beat up the body, not to mention the fact that logging mile after mile on the course can get kind of monotonous. An increasing number of those runners, in fact, are becoming less interested in hoofing it through the streets and more interested in the buildings that tower over them. Building that contains miles of stairs within their dizzying heights. There is a sport known as professional stair climbing. Christian a 29-year-old environmentalist scientist who turned to stair climbing, also known as tower running, after qualifying for the Boston Marathon 10 times and running a bunch of others. She started this vertical running after a friend encouraged her to try it, and she became hooked on it. Christine is now the best female U.S. athlete in the sport and recently ran a groundbreaking 24-hour endurance event in Jacksonville, where she and 3 other fellow climbers repeatedly scrambled up the Bank of America Tower's 42 floors. By the time they were finished, they had logged 123,400 steps and 5,880 floors, the equivalent of scaling Mount Everest 2.5. She run up most of the tall buildings in the United States, including the Sears Tower in Chicago and, of course, the Empire State Building here. Most of us would consider running up 5,880 floors to be, well, insane. After all, that's what elevators are for, right? Indeed, Kristen says that the recovery time for running all those stairs is nearly twice as long as recovering from a marathon. She says, sometimes I feel sick for 2 or 3 days afterwards. A few times I've tasted blood at near the top of the race. And I've seen spots in some races when I was just 5 floors from the top. Once I pass the timing, I usually fall and will crawl out of other people's way trying to catch my breath. I stumble when my legs are jello but have never fallen. And I've gotten blisters on my hands from grabbing the rails, so I brought football gloves that protect the skin. and you thought that walking up the floors to your office was tough. When you read Paul's letter to Timothy, he is setting himself up as a tower runner. Staircases. I will even say Jacob's ladder. Paul has seen it all and done it all by the time he writes to Timothy. Having climbed too many steps to count as he traveled all over the Roman world preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, Paul certainly had his share of blisters, falls, scrapes, and blood from a myriad of imprisonments and beatings. But now as he stands at the top of the vertical race that was his life as an apostle, Paul realizes that the race was all worth it. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on, there is reserved for me the crown of righteousness, that honor, which the Lord will give me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. For Paul, the race was always vertical, because it was always about focusing upward on God in Christ. In Philippians 3:14, he puts it like this: I press on toward the goal for the prize of the heavenly call in Jesus Christ. To the Colossian Christians, he writes, so if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Colossians 3:1. Paul spent most of his life traveling long horizontal distances, but he was always looking up toward a higher calling and a prize worth racing toward step by step. Indeed, it was the focus on the prize awaiting him at the top of those steps that kept him going, along with the constant steps of the Lord beside him, giving him strength, rescuing him from the lion's mouth, and saving him for God's heavenly kingdom. Paul is writing all of this to his young protege, Timothy, and the text implies that Timothy will be the one to pick up the baton Paul is passing to him and continuing the long climb of following Christ. All who want to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, Paul tells him. But he encourages Timothy to continue in what you have learned and firmly believed. There will be opposition from those who want to take the shortcut or the easy way up. But Paul says, as for you, always be sober, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, carry out your ministry. In other words, keep climbing. Following Jesus isn't about a get out of jail free card. I mean that people see God as giving them whatever they want or need whenever they want it. We want God to get us out of situations which we have created on our own, or illness or some other dire situation. We want a miracle. It doesn't happen. But that is why it is a miracle, because God so rarely grants those requests. Get out of jail free cards for life situations. God created us in the image of God so that we could have a true relationship with God. We are stewards of God's creation and given the ability by God to deal with the situations which come our way. Too many, though, don't want to exercise their faith. We are a society which is addicted to the instant cure, the instant fix. Take weight loss, for instance. We have diet pills and miracle diets. Something to do it for us. We know that the real key for weight loss is to push away from the table a sensible diet and a regimen of regular exercise. In other words, we must be disciplined.